Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Joseph Gutierrez, owner of MyLifeInsuranceBroker.net, and this is Covered in Compounding. So for today, we're going to be talking about retirement accounts and how best to approach retirement, okay, and what tools do we have, okay. So part of the last 40 plus years, the 401k, the traditional 401k, has been in the American lexicon, right? So as we all know, the 401k is a tax deferred account where we make monthly contributions and our employer matches up to a certain point, a certain percentage. Those contributions are invested in the stock market, usually some kind of index fund, where they grow on a tax deferred basis for eventual distributions in our retirement, right? Okay, after 59 and a half, we pay taxes on our distribution. They carry us through retirement, okay? This was a great idea back in the 1980s, late 1970s when this was constructed, because the idea was that the interest rates and tax environment of the early 1980s was significantly higher than it is today. Okay, so the idea is that we would rather pay taxes on a lower tax bracket amount in retirement, especially if taxes are forecasted to go down, versus paying them today. We want our dollars to work as hard as they possibly can. Okay, so that was great then. However, today it's just simply not the case. Okay, and it's not the case for a variety of reasons. Okay, and so why is that? Well, people like Elon Musk of Tesla Motors or Peter Zion, global macroeconomic strategists, have been sounding the alarm of a demographic collapse, population collapse, and deglobalization. So why is this important? Well, it stands to reason that if there are less people domestically and globally producing goods and services, there's going to be less available. Also, there's going to be less people available to consume these goods and services. Okay, and our demographic group of the baby boomers is also retiring and declining naturally as time goes on. They're the ones that are also taking their capital, their money, out of the markets, out of their 401ks, and using it to give themselves income in retirement. So our capital base is shrinking. Okay, so this means that we're already seeing higher interest rates and a higher inflationary environment. Okay, so we have less workforce and less capital available. This leads to price inflation and on goods and services, as well as a fiscal deficit that's not improving. We can kind of follow the logical conclusion here. Okay, less workforce leads to less capital, leads to less growth, leads to higher government deficit spending, which will likely materialize in higher taxes down the road. Okay, so if you're a younger individual in your 30s, 40s, maybe early 50s, it stands to reason that because of all of these factors, in the future, 10, 15 years from now, tax rates will be higher. So why would we put our money into a tax-deferred vehicle like the traditional 401k? Does that make any sense? Not quite. Now, what we'll be investigating here today is any kind of alternatives where we can put our money into to maximize our retirement income and avoid these more overbearing tax circumstances that are likely to materialize. So I'll see you then in the next part of the video. Okay, so for our example today, we're going to be looking at an overfunded 401k versus an index universal life policy. How does one perform over the other, and where should we consider putting our excess savings, right? And I'm talking about an overfunded 401k because I'm not talking about the match, right? So if your employer gives you, on your first 3%, they give you 1.5% or something of that nature, that's fine. I'm not talking about the match. I'm talking about what we do with our excess savings, because I'm sure we all know that just contributing up to the match is probably not going to be enough over the long term as far as saving an adequate amount for retirement. Okay, so in our example here, when we look at our illustration, on the left side we have our 401k or overfunded 401k account, and on the right side we have the index universal life policy. Okay, so obviously we made some assumptions here to try and get them close to an apple-to-apples comparison as possible. Okay, so on both sides we're assuming about a 7% average rate of return. On the 401k side, we're just assuming a 1% management fee. It may be higher or lower. 401ks are notorious for having a lot of hidden fees, but we're just going to say it's 1%. We're also assuming an effective tax rate of 30%. Now, in our intro, we were talking about how tax rates are likely to increase over the next 10 years plus. In this example, we're just going to use a 30% tax rate, but just keep in mind it's likely going to be more if trends continue the way they are. But for today, we'll just assume 30%. Okay. And on the index universal life side, we're assuming the average rate of return of about 7%. Okay. This is net of all fees. So in our cash value account or account value, it's going to be net of all fees to keep the policy going, the cost of insurance, all those things. And our distribution scheme is going to be used via a variable policy loan. Okay, these are all important. We'll get into the meanings of everything as we go on here. So on our 401k side, we have $15,000 contributions per year of overfunding our tax-deferred traditional 401k. And we can kind of see how the performance of our 401k over the years is going to do. So by our 30th year, somewhere around the end of our 64th year, we're going to have an account value of a little over $1.2 million. And assuming a 30% tax bracket, we have a immediate cash available for disbursement of $880,000. Now that's not 100% realistic because the more we pull out, the higher income our tax bracket is. But just for the sake of examples, we're going to assume 30%. So, and as we can see, our death benefit as well is basically our after-tax distribution. Okay. So when we look over on the index universal life side, we're going to see that our account value has grown to about $889,000. Our cash available for disbursement is the same number, and our death benefit is about $1 million. So we're seeing some mirroring and parallels between the two types of accounts. So far, it's about even in different respects, but we have about $880,000 to play with in retirement. Okay, so when we look at our next slide here, we notice something very interesting and very important. When we look at our 401k side, our overfunded 401k, in order to give ourselves $80,000 per year in retirement, we actually have to pull out $114,000 plus here in retirement because of that deferred tax. The traditional 401k is a deferred tax. We've got to pay tax on our money that we're pulling out. Okay, so as we can see, every year that we pull out, our end of year account value is decreasing by that amount. Okay, even assuming a 7% increase on the money that's available, we're seeing that decrease until we get to our 81st year where we essentially run out. Okay, so let's turn the page there and look at the index universal life policy. So how does this differ? Well, what is interesting here is that we're able to pull out $80,000 on an annual basis because through policy loans, it's tax-free. We don't have to worry about paying tax. We're able to pull out up to age 89 years old. And we notice something very interesting here. We have an account value column that is continuing to increase as we're pulling money out through policy loans. And we have our cash available at disbursement, the available cash value that is decreasing along with the income that we're taking. We also notice that our death benefit is also decreasing in relation to our policy. So what's important about this is that an index universal life policy through the use of variable loans allows us to have a positive arbitrage on our money. Okay, so our money is able to grow even though we're pulling it out. So how is this done? So we're going to go over here to the whiteboard to kind of get a quick idea of how this would work. Okay? So in relation to the index universal life, we kind of have two different columns here. So we have our IUL, we have our account value, and we have our cash value. Okay, so for every year that goes by, our index universal life policy is going to accumulate some kind of interest rate. Okay, usually depending on the market, very similar to our 401k. So we're going to assume that's 7% per year, okay, just for the sake of illustration. It's going to fluctuate, but on average it should be somewhere around 7% per year. So our account value is going to increase over time. Our account value specifically is not dependent on how much we pull out via policy loans. That increases every year no matter what, unless we make a direct disbursement, okay, as far as cash. But we're using policy loans to stretch out a dollar, and we'll see that soon here. Our cash value available will decrease depending on the year that we've made our distributions, but we have this positive arbitrage effect that's pretty important, okay, in the overall scheme of things. So let's do a quick example with some like kind of soft numbers here to get an idea. So if we have an account value, for example, of $100,000, okay, and our cash value and account value are equal because we haven't made any policy loans yet. Let's say we take out a policy loan of $20,000, okay? And unlike the 401k, we can take a policy loan on our money anytime we want. We don't have to wait till 59 and a half. It's something to keep in mind. So we take out $20,000, so it stands to reason that the available cash value is now $80,000. $100,000 minus the $20,000 is the $80,000. Okay, but that's available cash value. However, our account value is where the interest rate of 7% is being applied. Okay, and we have a positive arbitrage on the number on the policy loan that we pulled out. So when we accrue 7% for the year, the way it's calculated is based on the 100,000. So we have the 80,000 that we didn't touch, 80K, times the 7% increase, so 1.07. Okay, so that's going to end up equaling about $85,600. So the policy grew from 80,000 to 85.6 on that 80,000. The 20% that we pulled out has a positive arbitrage. So the way those numbers works out is we have 1 plus the 7% that we've made on our money minus the policy loan rate. So that comes in usually around 5%. Okay, so if we do the quick math here, we have 20,000 times 1.02. So we're making a positive arbitrage of 2%. Okay, we get the 7% minus the 5% of the money that we borrowed, we get 2%. So the way that works out, we get a positive, looks like $400. 85.6 thousand plus our 0.4. So we've made our new cash value is $86,000. So we see how that positive arbitrage, we still made money on the amount that on funds that we actually pulled out via policy loans. This is important. This allows us to stretch our dollar, if you will, okay? Where we can gain money in our cash value account over time, even though we're pulling money out. And this allows us for the extra, basically 9 years of, in this case, $80,000+ on an annual basis. Okay, and when we look at the final numbers at the bottom here, this makes it even more clear. Okay, so what do we see? We see that on our overfunded 401k, we have contributed pre-tax $450,000 over those 30 years, and we were able to disperse about 1.3, a little over $1.3 million. Okay, so we have a pretty good return. It's about 300% return, so we 3x'd our money, okay, which is not bad. It's also not that great. When we look at the Index Universal Life policy, we've contributed $315,000 after tax dollars, okay, $315,000, and we have a distribution, a total distribution, since 65 years to about 89 years of a tad over $2 million. So we have about 640% gain on our money there. Okay, so as you can see, the overfunded 401k versus the Index Universal Life policy, you see these large differences here because we have this positive arbitrage effect in our account. Okay, so which one would you like to choose to use for your retirement savings? The overfunded 401k or something like the Index Universal Life? I'll let you decide. For me, for my money, the Index Universal Life policy does quite a bit better than the overfunded 401k for all the reasons we just discussed. Thank you for watching our video on the comparison between an overfunded 401k versus Index Universal Life policy. Okay, we kind of saw the pros and cons of each approach as far as utilizing these policies or these strategies as a means to fund our retirement, right? We didn't necessarily spend a lot of time talking about the other benefits of an Index Universal Life policy, like the living benefits or using it as a line of credit. Nonetheless, we were able to see how an Index Universal Life policy is superior than a overfunded 401k. Okay, if you'd like to look at how a policy, an Index Universal Life policy, or any policy can be used and applied to your situation for saving for retirement or providing any kind of protection for your family, reach out to us by clicking the link in the description and setting up a free consultation with myself or one of our other producers. Okay, click like and subscribe to the video for future content, and I look forward to seeing you on our path towards financial independence and utilizing the foundational asset. Until next time.